Hello and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm your host, Steve Plum, Editor-in-Chief for SME Media, along with Kip Hansen and Amy Bryson. Welcome to the almost summer edition of the podcast. So we already touched on our state by state of the manufacturing industry, which I encourage everyone to check out on advancedmanufacturing.org, as well as the print version, including a cool pull-out map loaded with stats and other resources. But there was plenty of other great content, including a few that the two of you both worked on and highlight the intersection of people and technology and optimizing humans in the loop. Kip, can you share some insights from your latest feature on press brakes?
Yeah, the press break story was actually a sequel to the May issue, and where the first one, where last month focused on automating press brakes, whether it's robots or other material handling systems. This story, what the sequel focused on tooling, which is I think often one of the most overlooked and from my side at least confusing aspect of press brake operation because there's so many different standards that you kind of get locked into when you buy a specific brand of press brake. So I reached out to some of the builders for their input on that. And yeah, one of them Bystronic, we had a fairly lengthy discussion about tooling standardization, and he mentioned that a lot of the industry is moving towards wheelless style hydraulic clamping systems, which and all of them shared on this same comment that setup time, just like it is with chip making equipment, setup time is critical as manufacturers, especially the small to medium sized manufacturers. They are moving more towards high mix, low volume. So you've got to, where in the past, maybe you're running 1,000 parts on a setup. Now you might be running 50 or 100 or, even one or two. So obviously setup time is critical on that. With that, obviously setup time can be reduced by adopting standardized tooling, hydraulic clamping systems with like they mentioned with the wheelless style, and automatic tool changers are becoming real big. But some other things too. Trump touted their constant die width tooling, which lets you get more of a general purpose tile. Uh, Punches and dies, so obviously you don't have to change them as much. Um, Wilson Tool, they talked about their electric clamping system, which is the opposite of wheelless style hydraulic. They've had that out for quite a while, but they're seeing a lot of growth in that area. Um, and then the other theme that came up quite often is advanced materials. Hardened steels, armor plate, a couple name brand materials like Strenix and Hardox. They came up a couple times. So yeah, it really comes down to the big focus on this issue was about flexibility for the high mix, low volume, um, uh, standardization of tooling, and reducing setup time. And I think even though this is focused on press brakes, on sheet metal, that's a message we can carry over to the chip making side of the shop as well.
Yeah, it's definitely some familiar names there, and it's so interesting that press brakes are fundamental to manufacturing and have been around forever, but that advanced technology continues to impact and enhance the traditional machines, including on the advent of new materials, like you mentioned, and the same is true for chip removal. It's kind of a daily challenge on how to improve efficiency and reduce waste. You know, Another feature in the magazine points out on chip removal, successful chip control really starts with a good understanding of what's being cut. And at the center of this is the rise of new cutting tool materials. They're stronger, more durable, and designed to run at higher surface speeds and maintain sharp edges. But this also creates some different chip geometries. Instead of breaking cleanly, they're now long and continuous. As a result, companies like Sandvik Corment are putting more emphasis on geometry-driven chip control. And to this end, ISCAR recently introduced new CBN and MPCD inserts with laser cut chip formers. Jorgensen and L&S North America also offered good advice on new ways to dispose of chips, including compaction processes that squeeze out coolant. It's been a while, I know, since you've worked in the shop, but how much have things changed, in regards to chip removal from when you started out, Kip?
I think it's changed a lot. Now whether shops are taking advantage of all the technology that's out there is up for debate. But I still remember back probably 1985, 1986, we got our first true CNC lathe. And at that point, we were doing hand sharpened tool bits a lot of the time. And we got our first Sumitomo lumpy bumpy, we called them, because they had little chip breaker bumps on the top of the insert. And that was 30 years ago. So to answer your question, I think it's improving a lot, both on the cutting tool geometry side, but also, like you said, finding ways to squeeze the coolant out of the chips, make them more recyclable, and also save your coolant. I mean, don't have a lot of coolant going out with the chips. It costs money, and it's all always to optimize.
So we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and you mentioned your bird and how it's prone to repeat some things. I'm sure Lumpy Bumpy would have been a fan favorite.
I'll try and I'll get my wife working on that. She's better at teaching them.
So, Amy, you've been doing a series of articles on Manufacturing USA.
Yeah.
Last year was the 10th anniversary, so we were really highlighting some of that had been around for a while. But in June, July, you've kind of give an overview of where all of them stand. So, what's the latest?
Yeah, I mean, we thought it was a good opportunity, for June, July, as, with the big 250th year anniversary to literally provide a lay of the land of Manufacturing USA. So there's a map that demonstrates where all of the 17 Manufacturing USA institutes are, as well as their areas of focus, and, the network is operated by the Interagency Advanced Manufacturing National Program Office, which is headquartered at NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the Department of Commerce. And as you mentioned, Steve, we've been profiling various institutes over the past couple of years, I want to say. And really, the institutes like to think of themselves as conveners of businesses, even competitors and academic institutions and other stakeholders, to test applications of new technology, advanced technology, create new products, and help manufacturers reduce cost and risk and really scale. And at the end of the day, they each have a goal of ensuring that what's invented in the US can also be manufactured in the US. So, there are so many different institutes that I think among the three of us we've talked to probably several times. So, some include SESME, which is the Smart Manufacturing Institute. You've got IACME, which focuses on advanced composites. There's AFOA, which is advanced fibers and fabrics. Hybrid Electronics, which is an outfit called Next Flex, and then Power America that focuses on semiconductor chip fabrication.
So next flex is kind of like a lumpy bumpy
It
vibe
is,
there.
and it's fun to say, and and, then, of course, there's MXD and Symantec that part of their core focus is cybersecurity. But, those we have, individual stories on all of the ones I just mentioned as well as other ones, other institutes. So we encourage you to check those out on advancedmanufacturing.org. Just look up Manufacturing USA and check those out. But it's a really interesting program and or network, and they're always looking to start up new institutes. In fact, there's I think a query out there because they're looking to start up an institute focused on artificial intelligence, which, as the three of us know, and probably most people who are listening, I mean, AI is everywhere and it's not going anywhere anytime soon, which reminds me of another article in June, July, which is part of another series. Like you mentioned, Steve, we do recurring kind of series in the publication. And this one is called Passport to Innovation. And that's really designed to share conversations with the people, talk about the processes and the technologies that are moving the industry forward into new territories. And for June, July, the focus was on how AI is driving what's called decision velocity, specifically around engineering design review process. And we spoke with a guy named Jeremy Andrews, and he's the co-founder and CTO of Colab Software. They're based in Toronto, and that team has a goal to help improve how engineering teams review, discuss, and really decide on design work. And Jeremy said that for many companies, reviews are really slow and often error prone, which we know means more time, more money, a lot of rework, and project delays. So Colab is building these AI agents, and these agents, quote, understand engineering data, and they apply these insights automatically from historical feedback within the existing, infrastructure to new designs. And one of the things that Jeremy and I discuss is this AI peer checker. It's called Auto Review. Colab launched that last year, and it's gotten some really positive feedback. I think they have a wait list of tens of thousands of people wanting to use it, but it really reviews 3D models and 2D drawings, and it autonomously generates markups and comments on design files with the goal of surfacing risks at that design stage before they become, well, expensive. So the company has this kind of ultimate grand vision that Jeremy calls engineering OS, where humans and AI agents work together on these kind of decisions and acceleration of design cycles. And Colab shared with me that they did this survey aimed at understanding how engineering leaders are currently thinking about AI, and they are also identifying and defining some of the use cases that companies can see as early wins. Because we've talked about AI for a couple years now, and there's still a lot of skepticism, confusion, misconceptions about AI and its tangible impact. And Jeremy said a few interesting things. One, he said AI readiness is a foundation problem. It's not a tool problem. And specifically around data created during design decisions, you need to know what was changed, why, what was rejected. It's that raw material that AI needs to be useful. Without it, you're just training AI on what he says is chaos. Um, and then the other area he's pointed out, and I think this applies just to anyone talking about AI generally as being a useful tool, is AI generated outputs or answers. They have to be two things. First, they have to be accurate. And secondly, they have to be relevant. If AI is performing a design review, for example, you need to avoid false negatives. So that might be where AI overlooks a mistake in a design. And you also need to understand the false positives where AI points to an issue that, yes, it might be technically accurate, but it's not worth an engineer spending time on it. So, engineers also want oversight on this design rationale. So, this is interesting point too. AI needs to cite sources. So if you think about this, most information required to justify these design decisions, as I mentioned earlier, it's not publicly available. It's not on the internet. It's, integrated, it's in the internal systems. And so these AI systems have to integrate and surface this proprietary information. And these are interesting considerations that this article reveals for AI. And as we know, it's not going anywhere. We need to continue to talk about it, talk about how it's useful. Some of the things that, are still not ready for prime time, quick wins, as well as the long-term strategies. And it's an important space to keep an eye on. And I know that we all will. And it, from large shops to small shops, it's impacting everyone.
Yeah, maybe we should change the term AI to stand for accurate information.
Mm, interesting. I like it.
Just a thought.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you start now, Steve, maybe it'll catch wind and I don't know, put a s- put a social media strategy around it and see how it catches fire.
There we go.
Yeah, but I know, Kip, like, even one of your pieces, the 10 steps to the top, well, it's not the core of the article. I mean, AI is still even a part of that piece.
Yeah, it definitely is. And if Steve, you're going to start a social media strategy on AI, you probably should get started soon because it's changing so quickly and improving. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy where it's going. And if you're talking about engineering AI, I'm sure someone's working on machining AI and bending AI right now. And yeah, it's definitely, you're right. We need to embrace it because it's not going anywhere. And the trick is to teach AI what you need it to do. It's good at remembering things like that. I mean, the days of it hallucinating uh, like crazy are gone. It still does make mistakes from time to time, but yeah, you've got to embrace it. And I yeah, one of the so to answer your question, the 10 steps to the top was really a distillation of the 160 some pages of Smart Shop Essentials content. um, I interviewed a lot of people for that series, and I thought it'd be fun to pull together, some of the best practices, some of the advice that these different people uh, pulled together, and it kind of circles back to the press break discussion from a minute ago. Especially in the high mix, low volume shops, which is most of the job shops, machine shops, mom and pop shops, whatever you call them. That's what they're engaged in. So it's all about setup time reduction. It's all about, perhaps investing in 0 point tooling to standardize your vices and your other work holding devices. Um, and embracing robots, whether it's collaborative robots or robots slash automation in the form of pallet changers and bar feeders and so on. Um, and then I think also one of the takeaways from that article was it's probably lower on the priority list, but investing in advanced equipment, 5 axis machinery, multitaskers. I think multitasking lathes are probably should be a priority for most of these shops. You can set up 10, 20 parts, leave them in there and be resident in the machine at all times, and a one piece flow becomes very, very manageable within, changing over in less than 5 minutes. It's very, a lot of opportunities there. Um, Another one that came up was software. MES is we've talked about that a lot over the last year, in collaboration with machine monitoring, where you can actually gather real-time information from the machines and make better decisions. And to Amy's point, AI is going to help that. AI is great at looking at this mountain of data that's coming off the shop floor and making sense of it and looking for events that a human probably wouldn't catch, and even if they had time to look for them, they probably wouldn't catch. So, yeah, what else? I mean, there's just so many opportunities out there. Toolpath simulation, that's gonna be increasingly AI driven. Um, Cutting tool selection, and toolpath generation, that's another area where AI is gonna be helping out a lot, looking at the toolpaths, trying to find ways to optimize them that takes a lot of time for a human, but Claude or ChatGPT can, or the equivalent, can blast through situations like that in seconds and find stuff that a human either wouldn't find or would take them a lot of time to pick out. So a lot of good stuff coming on there. I thought that was a really fun article to write, and it was great to circle back with a lot of these folks that have given us meaningful and helpful input over the past year or so.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about how fast things are changing on the AI front. And tomorrow I'm doing another podcast with Gray Matter Robotics, which is really focusing on physical AI and bringing it into the shop floor. So looking forward to learning more about that. Amy, a quick question for you.
Sure.
What's your favorite Manufacturing USA institute?
Steve, I simply have to plead the fifth on that. I mean, I can't answer that.
I thought you might say something like that.
What's yours, Steve?
All of them. But Kip, any teasers?
Yeah, before I talk about August, just going back to gray matter, it's interesting, and you talk about how quickly things move. I interviewed gray matter, I think 2 years ago, maybe, um, and they were just recently coming out of a university grant program, and they had developed a sanding system for auto body panels and so on. And I know recently they've come out with some other products. So it's a very cool company, and keep an eye on them, because they've got
Yeah,
some
they're
really,
they're expanding very very rapidly.
yep, very cool stuff.
Hey, any teasers for what you're working on for August, Kip?
What am I working on for August? I don't remember what I'm working on for August, Steve. Um, Let me see. August, yeah, I did.
We can hear you clicking around on your computer.
Yeah, I did.
I did an article on shop floor lessons. It was not all that different from the steps to the top that I did recently, and then
Yeah, I read that. I edited that one, Kip. You'll be very surprised by some of the edits I
oh, I
made.
bet you
Just
tore it
kidding.
apart like normally, right?
And another one that you did, Kip, was your first IMTS, reminiscing about that. And the August issue is our preview issue for IMTS. And you had some good insights on how things have changed over the last 35 years, I think, was your first IMTS roughly.
Yeah, 94, I think it was, and yeah, it was still chip making on one side and sheet metal on the other, and I remember the all the attention that the Variox, the Hexapod machining center was getting. I think it was G&L that had developed that, and I thought, what a great idea, what a great design, and it's gone now. So anyway, a lot of changes, but still a lot of, even though there's been a lot of the American companies that have gone away, been absorbed or gone bankrupt or what have you, there's still some good American builders um, still standing.
For sure. And not only look forward to talking to both of you on that issue, but also attending IMTS this year. And on that note, I'd like to thank you both for lending your insight to the June-July issue.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
And remind people one more time, Amy, what to do.
Well, if you like the podcast, remember to like the podcast and also subscribe so you get new episodes delivered to you when they drop.
And for more informative podcasts and all the latest manufacturing news, please visit advancedmanufacturing.org.